well, let's get started. Thanks for joining us and for joining our webinar. Really Responsive Design is the Next Wave of Innovative Learning. I'm Lydia Sani, and co-presenting with me today are Les Trepsa and Ken Andrew. So there'll be other opportunities. If you haven't already, like I said, answered questions, the poll question, please go ahead and do so. And there'll be a lot of other opportunities as well throughout. And the poll questions will be on the lower right-hand side. On the upper right-hand side, we're going to keep the chat room active throughout our presentation. So as well, please feel free to ask any questions or comments whenever you want. So basically, we have a lot of attendees today. So obviously, this is a hot topic, and we're going to show you our objectives to the presentation. If you want to take a moment and read those. So basically, we want to shake things up a bit, and we want to look at responsive design from a really holistic perspective. We know the world's not perfect, and as you know, learners, we all struggle to develop really good learning experiences. And some tools, they allowed us to build material faster and cheaper, but not necessarily does better go hand in hand with that. So we've all struggled and tried different tools. So we really believe that learning now is turning the corner for the better. So what we want to do is, as learning environments and devices evolve, so does our need to design learning. And we want to take advantage of all these evolutions in ways that people learn and the way that our learners are being affected by all this. So I'd like you to take a look now at how responsive design is classically defined. This is basically the Wikipedia description of responsive design.
Joined.
So what you can see is it's a very technical perspective, and it's very device centric. So as you look at that, what's missing from the definition? So if you can feel free to type that in the lower right-hand panel. Let us know what you think is missing from the definition of responsive design. Nothing? Designers, smartphones, responsive to users' needs, context. Okay, all good answers. All good answers. Let us tell you what we think is missing.
Hi, this is Les. Looking forward to chatting with everyone, at least through this virtual world this morning.
Joined.
And thanks for your suggestions. We really think that a lot of what's missing can be summarized by people, the human component that really is what drives how we use devices. And it's really tied back to how individuals interact with devices, how they participate in their web experiences and media, and how we participate in the web experience is obviously one of the natural drivers towards how we should participate in learning. The human perspective introduces a whole number of interesting perspectives. It also creates some amazing opportunities, which is mostly what we're going to be talking about today. There are all sorts of things that need to be taken care of that influence how we interact with media and learning. So let's get into some of it. To us, it's not just how, but when and where. So when you think about that, really that starts to describe the type of freedom that you can have as a designer and developer of real connected learning material. It's not just what device you use, but how you react to it, and also when you use it and where you use it. This is a freedom that gives you all sorts of options and additional components. So very much like the telephone, the telco industry, when you think that, not that long ago we had corded phones that moved to cordless phones, to cell phones, to smartphones, Obviously, the technology advanced significantly, but really, when you think about it, what's really happened is we're now using devices in a whole different ways. The smartphone obviously has allowed us to bring in all sorts of interactions from the traditional desktop. Today, a vast majority of the traffic is not voice, it's actually data. From our learning perspective, responsive design means taking advantage of the tools and the freedom that you end up having. What this really does is gives us freedom to choose the device and not be attached to a desktop or a cord or a laptop. Free to do more. Larry Page sort of summarized um, this sort of conversation around devices as that we are actually living in a mobile-only world. That's kind of an interesting spin where he's really gone out to that level. People are using devices to seek knowledge. 90% of North American population is connected somehow to a device within an arm's length reach. Think of ways of presenting information that is compelling while being still familiar. This may be a stretch, as we all work in organizations where, as most of us said, we're still tied to the desktop. But what we're really here to explore are what are the possibilities. Let's get a bit deeper into what we're really talking about. So the physical context is the most obvious piece, right? It's any device, it's freedom to move around, and we can optimize the experience. The traditional definition sort of captures that. But it fits while extremely still a very narrow perspective from our viewpoint. It also fits very nicely with bring your own device strategies that many organizations are moving towards. And yes, of course, it works across all sorts of devices that are changing constantly. So there's a whole time issue and a change issue that has to be thought of. The how part really starts tying back to the learner experience. And to us, that's one of the key components really that we're talking about here today. Your learners can interact with material in new ways. It allows a multi-dimensional on-screen experience on top of the device experience. So you're not just tied to physically the screen, but the things around you. The when component creates a huge opportunity as well. When we look into our data tracking of how learners actually learn in an environment that often is a 9-to-5 day, we see individuals learning literally around the clock 7 days a week. It's quite fascinating to actually see the distribution of how individuals use learning material. It also means that you can intersperse learning into a regular day-to-day sort of work environment and take advantage of downtime. All this points to flexibility and efficiency. So imagine cutting the cord. One of the terms that we like to use is learn by walking around. Now all of a sudden, this allows us to do things that traditional e-learning has avoided and limited us over the last 20, 30 years. We can actually walk around, we can touch, we can smell, we can feel, we can actually get involved in our environments, working through problems with merchandise, with product. This also means that you can turn that device that you're absorbing the material around to your customer, and all of a sudden your learning material now can be customer facing if appropriate. It really lets us extend to our customer base beyond and share our knowledge.
All right, so now we're going to look at authoring tools and look at that. So if you could take time to answer the poll question, what tools are you currently using to create e-learning? Bill, like that. Yep, still a vast majority of a storyline. Very interesting. Um, so now what we're going to do, we'll give you a minute to keep answering. Interesting. All right. So now what I'm going to do is introduce you to Ken, and he's going to walk you through the different authoring tools.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So, as the poll shows, that really Storyline is a pretty popular authoring tool. Captivate is quite popular, and Lectora is also popular. So there's a bit of a spread, but there's also the mysterious 25% of other. So perhaps we can start to think about what the other is. So, as most of you are aware, there's a multitude of authoring tools out in the market. They all have pluses and minuses, but as the poll suggests, we think that they're the big three, where it's Captivate, Storyline, and Lector Inspire. They've been out there, they've been around for a long time, they do some really great things, but in some ways we think the way that the products are being developed, they're almost walking backwards into the future. So what I mean by that is because they have this older user base and older needs, they're trying to frame the needs of the new content delivery in old presentation paradigms. So I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging any of these tools. They're excellent tools, and they definitely have their place in our arsenal of tools that we personally use. But we think there are possibilities of improvement into the future. One of the things where we feel that the current tools fall down to some degree on is the responsiveness of their output. Currently, some do a better job than others. Certainly, Captivate, you can create the breakpoints. Lectora is natively HTML5. But generally speaking, there are compromises that an instructional designer and a developer need to make in order to create a product that works well across devices. From our experience, when it comes to a mobile output or mobile delivery, specifically talking about smartphones, the learner experience is often compromised or stripped down. So what the learner is being given is something that isn't as rich or as interactive or as enjoyable, quite frankly, as the same course on the desktop. A really good example of this that I think most people can appreciate is in Storyline. So Storyline, it's not responsive. So currently what Storyline does is it scales the content to fit the device. As mentioned earlier, Captivate and Lector are doing a better job where you have to use breakpoints and almost build out your course 3 times in some ways, because, or at least design it in 3 times for desktop, tablet, and smartphone use. So this can be quite an onerous process, not only in the instructional design phase where you're deciding on, which ways, which interactive elements can be used, how are they going to work on the various devices, how are they going to look, all the way through the development of the courses, creating the modifications required to support tablets and smartphones, as well as the testing, where you have to test the content on all your delivery devices almost from the beginning and early on in the process. So what we'd like you guys to do is imagine if we could free ourselves from these constraints so that we can move forward and build courses that are much more attuned to other delivery platforms.
So we're going to show you a video, but before we do that, we actually have a question from David. And he says, my organization uses Saba. Will responsive design work within that?
Yes, it will work, generally speaking, with Saba. I think Saba is moving more towards a responsive viewpoint of the LMS, but courses can be built and they can open in course player windows that can be responsive.
Great. So now we're going to show you a very short video that gives you a brief overview of responsive design.
Do you wish you could deliver an online learning experience that is in
There will be
sync with what
audio
your
in this
learners
video.
expect? Today's online world has raised expectations from many perspectives. It's time learning caught up to match how modern learners learn. Introducing you to a leap in learning that we can all celebrate. Based on a core responsive framework, we can rapidly develop learning to be delivered on any device, anytime, anywhere. The desktop experience is modern and without boundaries. Tablet and smartphone consumption is equally amazing, all derived from one data set. Imagine a learner experience that's intuitive and follows a natural learning path. Imagine simple, unobtrusive navigation. Imagine a visual framework resulting in a rich media experience aligned to today's inquisitive learner. All of this is possible without compromising sound instructional design principles and full control of the learning experience. Let's get on this journey together and achieve the type of results you want today.
Okay, so we have a question now for the audience. What do you think is different between traditional authoring tools and what was featured in the video we just showed? So what's really different? Any comments? 'Cause really, up until this point, the industry's been really focused on responsive design pages to accommodate a large variety of devices. And it's still slide-centric, though, and it's controlled. It's still very much a page-turner model. But the real opportunity here is learning how we've gone accustomed to using these devices. When we're scrolling through other sites, we normally don't expect a page-turner experience. So really, why should we expect that in our learning? So that's really where we are today, and what we really want to do now is take a look at what's something that we've been really happy with in using, which is the ADAPT Course Development Framework.
Okay, thanks, Lydia. So basically what I'm going to do is give you guys a bit of a demonstration of how a demo in the ADAPT framework, so a demo course that was built using the ADAPT framework. So I'll explain some of the key differences with ADAPT courses and how it unchains us from old design constraints. So really some of the key features, oops, got myself off there. So some of the key features, sorry, the joys of two monitors here. As Lydia was saying, it's really the, monitor setup is not working. So one of the main features that we were looking at here is the difference in course navigation. So I think that's probably, for me and people we've published ADAPT courses for, the thing that was the most difficult at first to get our heads around and understand and get ourselves out of this slide-centric viewpoint. So what we talk about when we talk about scrolling navigation is something called deep scrolling. Really, this form of navigation offers a solution that's much more natural and in sync with a modern web design experience. So, everyone uses Facebook on their mobile phones. You're not paging through slides in Facebook or Pinterest or any modern day apps, websites, that sort of a thing. So you're not on a mobile device, whether it be a tablet or a smartphone, you're not clicking a next button. So that same design principle has been applied to adapt. So the learner, instead of having to click next, 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 they can scroll through the content at their own pace. So some of you are probably saying, well, that sounds great, but how do I track? So how do I, prevent somebody from just scrolling all the way down to the bottom and like, hey, I finished my course. So the clever way that that is done is by using basically recording points, so SCORM recording points through different components in the learning. So you can see that within the menu, so this is almost like a table of contents or a menu as though it would appear in Storyline or what have you, but each of these entries are sections within the page. And then you can see these little pill-shaped objects. Those are progress bars. So you can see some components you can trigger completion by scrolling through if it's a text component. If it's a media component, like a video, then you can set up completion points within that video. If there are other types of components, then there are different ways of automatically setting up the tracking. The other big piece that really is appealing for us and our designers is the freedom of graphical design. What I mean by that is you can create really nice, big, rich graphics that fill an entire presentation screen, rather than sometimes in other tools you feel almost obliged to put the graphics into boxes, which doesn't feel that great. It's not all that modern looking, and doesn't showcase the graphics as well as you can building something in an HTML5 platform. So within ADAPT, there are things called components. What the components are pre-built objects that an instructional designer or a graphic designer working in tandem can choose from as a way to present content. Some of the key components are things like a hotspot component. So if there's a bit of information that seems to be tuned, the instructional designer says, hey, this feels like content that could fit into something that's an image, and you want to explore the different parts of the image, then a hotspot component is a great component. Once you click on the hotspot, you can click through, look at the content, close it. Then other components, which are similar to, again, to what people are used to seeing in the wider web, are things like the accordion type component. So you're clicking to reveal information, selection type components, certainly the video components, image components. So you can have an image either sitting like this or it can be full screen. And then something called the navigation or the narrative component. And this is a useful component if you want to tell a story. So this almost feels like a page turner within a scrolling page. So you can introduce a concept with an image, then the learner clicks through, understands. So if it's a bit of sequential learning or an ordering structure that you want to teach, then it's a great component for that. And the video component, you can embed videos either from YouTube or Vimeo or run them off your own server. So that's a great component because that's often the component for some people if they want to include rich media or some narration and that sort of a thing, then you would embed a media component. So really for us, it's an exciting platform. Probably for our developers, one of the most exciting things about it is the design the developer wants work across devices. So to demonstrate how that would work across devices, I'll scale my browser window here, and you can see that that the content responds and it will get to a point where it will swap out the content with a different layout pattern. So for the narrative slider, you can see now, instead of the text appearing to the right, you click on it, the buttons appear on the image, so you can scroll through it. And basically the coding to do this doesn't have to be done customly every time. It's part of the framework itself. There's also assessment components within it that I can show you a couple of. So similar to other tools, there are multiple choice, matching type components, as well as a way to stop the learner from progressing through the assessment until they've answered a question. And the components are designed with accessibility and mobile online. So, for a Mac, there isn't a drag-drop style component because that's not accessible. But there are ways to do something like that, for example, to match questions. So those are some of the key features for us within this framework. Yeah, we've used it to build quite a few courses. And delivered onto tablets, onto smartphones, and the results have been awesome. So let's have a look at I'm sure you're all saying, well, this sounds great, and often with new technologies, there are considerations around, well, does it work with my existing technologies? Does it play well with others? So really the answer is yes. So what Adapt does is it builds well-structured content that adheres to the best practices in learning, design, and delivery. So within the components, they've been thought about by various members of the eLearning community. It's an open source system to say, okay, what are the core components that need to be included within the framework so that I can design a course that offers enough flexibility to meet all sorts of different learning goals. So the components are made up of those sorts of pieces. So there's a nice big variety to cover pretty much every learning goal that we've come across. The other piece, as far as playing well with others, is they are the output of a course is SCORM compliant. So you can deploy a course from the tool using SCORM 1.2, and it uses the standard SCORM tracking of bookmarking, completion, tracking answer responses, and that sort of thing. So building a course within the system, we know there are standards in the world that are there for a reason. SCORM is one of them, so that's why the framework is SCORM compliant. Also, in our experience, especially with a lot of our larger clients, there's still a need for IE8 browser compatibility. The output of the framework, so the courses are IE8 compatible, and one of the benefits of using a framework like this is these core components, the elements, and objects have already been tested across a ton of different browsers, whether it's a PC running IE8, they even work on Blackberries, which often is problematic. So you can be feeling confident coming into this process that, if I've got a wide variety of clients or learners across devices, that you can efficiently build out a course that would work on all of them. The other piece, which is an important factor of any learning course, is accessibility. So the output complies with the WAI guidelines to level AA. And also there's the emerging accessible rich internet application standard, the RAIA. It also complies with that. So building out a course with the framework or the tool, you can be confident that learners with accessibility needs can use the course as well. Another way of looking at accessibility is language translation. You can, since the content is separated from the design itself, translating the information is quite straightforward. And that's another benefit of creating a responsive framework or a responsive course, where languages around the world, certainly dealing with French, is about 20 to 30% longer in its written form. So rather than having to recreate boxes or compromise some of the layouts in English, you can build a course that will look great in English, French, or even languages that run from right to left. So let's dig a little deeper into the ecosystem. So I've spoken about the framework, which is really the base of the tool, what it sits on. So people who are web developers and front-end developers can easily use that to build a course. But there's also the authoring tool, and that's aimed at non-technical users to be able to use a web-based tool and pick components, put it all together, put in their text, and quickly build a course. And then the other great part of it is they can collaborate with others while they're building the course, and text content can quickly be updated inside the tool itself.
So we now have a few questions. Jennifer, I believe we've answered yours about the accessibility requirements. So David is asking if responsive design is more expensive to implement.
Sure, that's a great question. From our experience, using some of the traditional tools like Captivate 9 and Lectora, we find that it has been more expensive to implement because you have to build these different versions of the pages. From our perspective, using a tool similar to Adapt or another HTML5 web-based tool can be less expensive or about the same price, but with a greater quality of output. So as I mentioned earlier, because these components have been pre-built, they're almost, think of them as things that you put content into. You put images in, you put text into, you put audio, video into. These core components have been pre-built and have been tested across devices. That means that when you get to the testing stage, you don't have to test it over and over and over again in a lot of different devices. Also, we found going from a storyboard or your instructional design process to your first build, your prototype, you can get to that point much faster using a tool like this because you can put together the basic experience, share it with your client or with your learners to say, hey, what do you think about this? So that could be done without the fancy graphics or without video, but you can quickly build out a prototype, show it to your stakeholders, get their input, make modifications as you go. So it can be much more of an agile solution than sometimes using Storyline and other tools. You feel more compelled to push it along the line a bit further, but you get a lot more collaboration as you go. So that's another factor of cost is you can get buy-in and sign off of key elements, flows, structures earlier on in the process, so that changes aren't coming down the pipe later on.
Thank you. Before we answer Aristotle's question, how about you take the time to answer our poll question in the lower right-hand side, which is your LMS responsive? And Aristotle is asking, I don't know if I missed you saying, but does it work within Tin Can?
Sure. So it's currently, it changes all the time because it's an open source framework. I believe currently it's SCORM 1.2 only, but Tin Can is, it's something you can add on top of it, and it would be supported. But I would have to check with my tech guys to see, if currently out of the box it's Tin Can ready. I believe it's SCORM 1.2, but it's because there are developers contributing to the framework around the world every day. It's a quickly evolving ecosystem. So if it isn't today, it will be shortly.
And Jamie, thank you for your added input that ADAPT is HTML5. So it is very aligned with accessibility. Marie is also asking, how about importing from Articulate Storyline 2?
Sure. So because of the presentation paradigms being quite different, there isn't a feature of such that you could directly import content into, from Storyline 2 into it as like an import tool. So what you would need to do, like if you have images, the text, everything else, most of the interaction types would apply. Then you would decide how you're going to break up the content, and then pull the text in, pull in the images. Depending on if you want to support, iPads with Retina displays and that sort of a thing, there may be a consideration around having different quality of images. But it's really, once the instructional design is done for Storyline 2 and it's built, then it would be it's a manual process, but it's not as though you'd be starting from scratch. And the serious benefit is, again, once you get it into your components, once you put your structure together, then it will work across devices. So there isn't an automated feature, but it's not as though you're starting from scratch.
And Greg has a question. Do you know of anyone using ADAPT framework in conjunction with a SharePoint hosting solution?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Alrighty, so thanks for your questions. Feel free to keep asking. And basically now what we want to do is walk you through 6 must-knows. Now, there's a lot of variety in the types of learning. Not everything is an ADAPT solution, but we're focusing on that today in terms of trying to expand mindset and what can be done out there in the learning world. So let's move forward with what we see as the 6 must-knows. Number 1 is we see it should be simple. Kids playing tag don't require a rule book. It's really easy to get started, and let's play.
It's very much like thinking of, again, that scrolling page. When we all go to truly responsive websites and some of the social media sites, there is no instruction manual. There is no real requirement to take us through how to use the content. It becomes an exploratory environment, and very much like kids play and make up their rules and adjust their rules as they play. We really think that a truly responsive environment that's centered around the actual learner really allows you to build something that learners want.
Must-knows number 2. It must be snackable. Now this child is having a rather large snack, but keep everything snackable, contained, and easy to learn.
So while that sandwich looks rather imposing, think of it as small pieces that can be used and interspersed through a workday. Imagine it being just-in-time learning where I can access material repeatedly as needed. As we said earlier, imagine being able to turn around and show a piece of learning material to my customer. This allows you to sort of space out the learning and deliver it when it's needed and really as it's desired.
All right, must-know number 3. Make it seamless. Really interact with your environment.
So here we really think that, if you have a landscape that allows you to zoom up, down, left, right, explore deep scrolling, it becomes very much like a picture. It's a landscape. I can zoom in and explore an individual space and learn more about that individual or that product. I can access it by sitting on my sofa from any device. As Ken said earlier, bookmarking allows me to pick up where I left off, so I can start something at work. I can complete it potentially on the way home, and I can finish it and do an exam at night while I'm on my sofa. All these small chunks can be threaded together. They really can create an agile learning environment and experience that the learner continues through, very much like how Netflix manages to capture us, and as it pushes one episode, it immediately starts the next episode and holds us to that environment.
Must know number 4 is keep it safe. A safe and secure environment is really paramount in our worlds.
So this is what we really think is interesting, that we're not presenting a new technology here. We're staying within our comfort zone. We've got tracking that we're all used to. We all have to work within our LMSs. Many of them are compatible to this environment. Being able to have the seriousness still in place, the testing abilities, and the security around it is number one paramount. One of our larger clients, with which we built a number of courses for it within this framework, was had a requirement for a very secure environment, and we were able to use ADAPT to create a fully tracked experience.
Okay, we're going to go to must know number 5. Story. Really feel free to tell a story. Don't just create a page turner. Stories are what people connect to, and they're really important in this.
And this is something that I think really underlies the real push here. The story is translated from paper when we build something as a storyboard, and really can come to life. We're not constrained with a page type environment. We're able to really, as developers, look beyond that, look beyond not just the page, but look at pulling together the story as an entire component and experience. And we're also able to, as we just said, chop it up and serve it in components that a learner wants. And that, to us, is a really powerful component here, where we've sort of, over the last number of years, really gotten constrained into a page thought process, as opposed to saying, let's explore how we really would like to involve ourselves with this learning material, and take it from that perspective, that really I can paint the story as I need to, not how it's constrained by the device or the tool set.
So now we're going to put the question back to you. What's the next must know? So we know that the first 5 are simple, snackable, seamless, safe, and story. What do you think is must know number 6? Anybody want to try to answer that? So we have someone saying success. Very good. Easy to build. Cheap. How about competitive as opposed to cheap? Okay, we have trackable. Easy. Let us give you our take on what we think number 6 is. We feel number 6 is, drum roll please, the learner. We feel the learner is the key point of this as well. So let's, because you're really doing it for the learner in terms of how they learn and what will resonate and maximizing the results of their learning. So let's go through and recap our must-knows. And so basically, our 6 must-knows are that it's simple, snackable, seamless, safe, tells a story, and the learner experience. Very key.
So really, this almost now kind of recaps and takes us right back to the very beginning. We think a lot of this is really tied to the idea of being free to design material as we want, as being a part of the learning community, being able to deliver material to that audience, to our learner, how they want it, when they want it, where they want it, and still obviously have those fundamental hooks back to our traditional structures and LMSs and SCORM standards, etc. We think that this is sort of one of the interesting sort of snapshots of time right now that we're actually now going to be seeing, I think, the beginning of learning moving into some really interesting directions without the constraints of some of the structures that we've sort of embraced, mostly out of necessity and limitations that were around us. This really means that for designers and developers, you can think out of the box. You're not stuck with how a course needs to be necessarily structured. For learners, it means that learners can learn when they want to learn. That we can break down some of the sort of structural components of courses and modules. And again, from business's perspective, we're still in a safe set art infrastructure. We're not going rogue here. We're not going off the charts with something that isn't safe and secure. We're still able to maintain control of the learning experience and guarantee that our learners are tracked and evaluated.
All right, we have one more poll question for you. Do you think your organization is ready to build and deploy truly responsive e-learning courses? And this just about wraps up our presentation for today. So if you want to use the chat function, we still have a little bit of time left to ask any other questions. We'd be happy to answer them for the amount of time that we have left. And I'd like to thank you all for attending, and we hope you found this interesting. If you'd like a recording of the session, just please email me at lydia.sani@redwoodperforms.com, and we will gladly send you a recording of the presentation and the slide deck. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad that you think it's exciting, Jamie. I appreciate your comments too. Thank you. Yes, Greg, the ADAPT framework is very exciting. Lots you can do with it, lots of opportunities. And really bringing learning back to the perspective of the learner, which is very important. And you can also see who's ready to create ADAPT and not in terms of percentages. So quite a few that are getting there. That's great to see. That's really refreshing. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us as well. So I'd like to thank everybody. I think it's been a good session, and really appreciated having everyone here today. Thank you very much, and we'll let you know about our next webinar, which will be in the fall, and we will send around the topic, and hopefully we'll see you all there again.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.